What is going on, guys? Welcome to Off the Top Spotlight. Today, my guest, Danny Maggs. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing real good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we'd love to have you know, someone like you on, and I'm excited to get this going.
Someone
So,
like me, what does that mean?
Canadian actor. Obviously, you've been big in. I mean, we're the same age, but
Yeah.
I watched a lot of you and your co-casts on television. A lot of my teen years, coming home from lunch and stuff, and you'd be on my TV.
Yeah, man.
So having someone of stature on the show is great to have.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know how much stature I've really got, but whatever. You know what? I'm gonna stop trying to fight it, I guess.
So tell me a little bit about what got you into acting. Was it your parents just signed you up? Or is it something that you at a young age started to want to do? Or
Yeah, so I mean I started acting when I was like 5 years old, so like mid nineties. My dad knew somebody that was a talent agent and was leaving town, but ended up meeting me and my sister and thought my sister would be really good as an
right?
actor, and so said, "Okay, um, let's go take your daughter to go see the guy that's going to be replacing me. And you know what? What the hell? Bring your son too. Why not?" And I ended up getting a bunch of work early, and it just kind of stuck. It snowballed, and that was my life for the first like I don't know most of my youth.
And that involved a lot of commercials to start, right? You did
Yeah,
like stuff like that,
yeah, a lot of commercial work. And then stopped doing commercials probably by the time I was about 10.
right?
So like, okay, at that point, we don't want to just be that commercial kid. So let's try doing some other stuff. See where it goes.
So one of the things that I just learned, and I mean, I'm pretty sure me and you've had this conversation in the past.
Yeah.
Um, what is it like being on a movie like X-Men? I know you had a small part in that movie, but like something like that is huge, especially in our generation.
Yeah, like it was cool. I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember being like, oh my god, everybody, check it out! I'm gonna be an X Men because it wasn't like that. Like, so the role. Okay, if anybody doesn't know this is like the greatest thing I've ever done. Is my role in X Men was Boy on Raft, and I was supposed to have a line. The story is Senator Kelly he escapes from Magneto. He's turned into a mutant. He slips through the bars of his cell and he crashes into the water and then he washes up on a beach. And there's a little kid in a little yellow dinghy that is just like jaw on the floor when this guy comes out of the water, and that's me. And they were supposed to have a shot of me back on the beach, like tugging on my mom, being like, "Mom, is that a mutant? What's going on?" And so that was the thing. I auditioned with the line, "Mom, is that a mutant?" And the whole thing in the dinghy took like an entire day to film out on Lake Ontario. So like, okay, now you're gonna come back the next day and you're gonna do the line. Except the next day was pissing rain. So
Ooh.
I just basically like hung out and chilled in my trailer all day, and then they're like, we're gonna send you home. We'll get somebody else to do the line. We'll get it like dubbed over in LA, and that's what happened. So like, it was cool to be like, yo, I was in X-Men, but also like my role got cut, kind of. So it was like a little bittersweet. I wasn't flexing too hard, and then my best buddy growing up, he went to see the movie with his mom, and because like I'm literally in it for like 3.5 seconds, he ducked down to grab some popcorn and apparently missed me on screen. So
Damn, that's
yeah,
tough.
right.
He was
Yeah.
all excited to see you on the big screen, and he missed it for popcorn.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I mean, that's not exactly something you're flexing about, but now I like the jokes. I like the meme of like, "Hey, I'm Boy on Raft, let's go."
Yeah, I mean, why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into other shows you've done,
Yeah.
what have you been doing since you've? I guess you're not a quote active actor at the moment, correct? You're
No.
just semi.
Yeah, I don't really know how to define it honestly. Like this is probably something that I should figure out in the next little bit is what am I? Like
I mean, most of us are still figuring that out, right?
right? Um no, I kind of put acting on the shelf in like 2016 or so. Basically just like the result of me getting real tired of the grind. And there's a lot of factors here.
Right.
But now like I had an agent in the middle of the pandemic for a little bit to try and get back into it, but the bottom line for me is like I've educated myself in production, in writing, in broadcast, and digital stuff now with Twitch, and these are all things where I know that I want to do something creative and ideally work in entertainment or events or, but I don't know that it necessarily has to be acting because the grind is so frustrating for somebody like me who lives in a world where I want constant feedback. And that's not to say I don't like acting because I really do, but I'm fond of saying in every industry and in every anything, the work required to get work is often different than the work actually required to do the job. That's how I feel about acting. The grind of throwing yourself out there, like dropping everything on a moment's notice to get to an audition. And like, I don't know how much clout anybody would think that I have because I'm coming off a Life with Derek or whatever 20 years ago, but like, it doesn't matter. It never mattered, at least not in a professional sense. Like, sure, okay, it matters to you. That's awesome, and I appreciate it. But it's like, it's Canadian cable television. You're not guaranteed to work again after. So you still got to go in there and put your work boots on and go and do that grind. And that grind just didn't stimulate me enough. It was like, I love performing, but I don't love this hustle.
And going off that, Life with Derek is a Canadian television show. We all know this. It was on the American network, Disney Channel, etc. Yeah. But it's not like it was the Canadian show Degrassi, where that actually lifted some actors on to other roles or Drake to other.
Yeah.
Right. So I get what you're saying with it takes a personal toll on yourself, right? Like you just like, is this really worth pushing for? And well, you have a nice list of work that you've done, but to you, it sounds like, yeah, it was fun, but it's not what I wanted to do.
There was a time where I really did want to, right? And I wanted to. It skews your perspective a little bit when you have that level of success at a young age. And I know a lot of people from the Degrassi vintage that went through similar things where you're like, okay, I know that I have clearly reached some elevation in my career. I don't know how to define it, but I know that I'm not just getting started anymore, right? You've done enough that you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And the hard part about being an actor in your early 20s especially is that it's the most competition for the least work. There are not a whole lot of roles for people in their early 20s. It's very rare.
So you could almost simulate that to, and I know you're a hockey fan, you can almost simulate that to coming out of the draft, going trying to make the NHL. There's so many spots for a team that's doesn't need you, but needs you.
I think it's a little different because, and don't get me wrong, man, I'll talk hockey any day, but there's very clearly there's a talent thing, right? So like elite talent is elite talent is elite talent. It's not necessarily about how good you are. I mean, maybe if you're a triple threat and you can dance and you can sing and you can whatever, but like Jenna Ortega is great. There are other people as good as Jenna Ortega whose names you've never heard of before. It's a combination of luck, circumstance, and the people you know. And that's not to take anything away. Right? No. Like she's great. But for every Jenna Ortega, there's a whole bunch of people that theoretically could do it. They just weren't in the right place at the right time or whatever. So it's like at that age, there's so many of them. And for me, it was like, man, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through the motions of like sustaining myself, waiting tables because it's easy, it's fun, and you get to, use that same charisma. But what's it building towards? And so I had to take a step back.
And you were strictly staying in Canada during this time, or you were down in LA or different spots?
I was in LA for 2 years. And it was interesting, right? Because I was young, and it was nice because nobody knew who I was, which is unusual, right? Like especially because the show was on in the States too. Like most people had no idea who I was, and like personally, and that was great. Especially like in my early 20s, coming off of that, just looking for a little anonymity. The second thing was it was like a little humbling, but definitely a little frustrating because again, like you've reached some level. You don't know exactly what that level is, but you're like, I've clearly done things. So now at a professional level, why are the people talking to me like I'm just some other 20-year-old?
Right.
And then you got to learn that, well, man, honestly, you are. It's nice
Right.
that you've
Like
done
life
stuff
sucks,
before.
take it as you will, right?
Yeah.
Like,
You know?
so with that, with like you moving to LA and like you said, the anonymity, when you're home in Canada, let's say when you're back in Ontario, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say where, people can if people know who you are and figure that out, that's up to them.
I'm around. I don't hide
But,
it. I lived in
but
Newmarket, Ontario for a bit. I'm from Thornhill. Like it's, whatever.
right. I just right. But
It's
like
all
when
good.
you're home,
Yeah.
what's it like? Like lots of people coming up to you and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Or
Um,
is that died off now with the quietness of Danny Mags?
well, I mean, I don't think anyone will ever accuse me of being quiet, but no, it definitely, there was like a while where it tapered off, but I came back from like LA. I did another year in Vancouver, and then I went back to school. I moved back home when I was 25 to try and just kind of get my bearings a little bit, and that's when I went back
Right.
to when I went to broadcasting school. But I was still waiting tables. I was working at a Jack Astor's in Newmarket, and I had people all the time being like, "Are you what? Are you?" And that was just a really really weird time because that was me trying to figure out who I am. It was the first time that I had hung up the acting stuff and been like, what, and at the same time you're battling like these people only know me as this person. They don't really know me. And it took a long time for me to actually kind of come around to, you know what, this is cool. I'm going to own it a little bit. So it died slowly. And then
Right.
now, like weirdly, like it feels like it's kind of coming back. I was sitting at the bar on Saturday night after I went and saw Cocaine Bear. Go see Cocaine Bear, by the way. It's as it sounds.
I mean, that's just it sounds like a great time.
Yeah, it was a great time. But I'm sitting at the bar having a beer after, and the bartender's like, "You look like that guy from Life with Derek," and I'm like, "This is unusual. This doesn't happen as much anymore." All right, thanks, man.
Right. And I mean,
Yeah.
now in the culture of, I know we can find John TikTok. That's how I connected with you.
Yeah.
We're buddies now for just over a year and some. But it's crazy to me. Like I'll be in a live, I won't be saying anything, and people are like, "Oh, it's Edwin, it's Edwin," and sometimes you embrace it, and then sometimes it seems to annoy you.
It depends on the day. With the TikTok stuff, especially, like, I think it depends on what I'm actually going to TikTok for. Most of the time, if you're following me on TikTok and you pop into one of my lives, it's I'm bored and I'm screwing around, or I just got a lot of like energy and I want to go be social, but I don't want to leave my house.
Or you're tearing apart computers that were built badly.
It was built fine. It just wasn't built to be taken apart. And so I was, anyway, yes, stuff like that. Where I was like, I want to be in front of people right now. But it's also like, it's a very specific performance interaction for me, which I really like. I like just that constant onslaught of like, let's go, send me comments, give me something to respond. Like, it's just so quick and satisfying.
Right.
For a long time, the Edwin thing did bother me. And I really, sometimes I'm kind of cheeky about it on TikTok, but I have really moved past that. Like, I've learned how to embrace it. As a kid, it was frustrating because it was two things. It was one, I don't want people to just look at me and see Edwin forever, right? And then the other side of that is the same, which is like, I am a person under here. So
yeah,
do these people even acknowledge that I'm a person under here? And remember, like, I was 14, 15. So you're in prime puberty years and you're trying to find your own identity and you're getting that all mixed in together. So yeah, that was hella tough.
Well, at least you didn't turn out to be like Miley Cyrus and completely crash and go one way, right? So
you know what, man? Miley Cyrus has a lot more money than me. And I gotta say, man, if did Miley do it right, she might have.
yeah, she done the whole child actor thing a little different, right?
Just a little bit, I think that it took a while, really. Like, I was with my buddy one day, and I've known this kid since I was like maybe 8 years old, and so this is back on probably 26, 27, and we're reminiscing about summer camp, and I was like doing the commercial thing right back when we met, and I had this reputation in camp because I was in an Oscar Mayer Wiener commercial and I was in a Dempster's bread commercial, and I was this Oscar Mayer Wiener bread boy, and it never really bugged me that that's what people make me feel a little weird. And then my buddy, like, we're in our late 20s, and he finally kind of admits to me, he's like, dude, we thought you were so cool. And I was like, what?
Right.
I'm like, hold on, what? Like, you guys were razzing, like, I was not used to that. And that kind of made it click, where anybody that's ever come up to me and been like, yo, Edwin. And as much as it drove me nuts, like, at some point, I realized, like, man, no, people like you're making people happy. People are into
Right.
this. Like, why are you even questioning it anymore? And I think it just took a certain amount of maturity.
Well, I remember when like I said, we're the same age, but like when I was going to high school and stuff, and me and my girlfriend at the time, we'd come home we'd go to my house at lunch and click on Family Channel, boom, Life with Derek's on, or it's 3 a.m. and there's an episode of Life with Derek. Like, you were literally a crucial part of my core memories of what my teenage years were like after hockey and stuff like that.
I gotta be honest,
There's
man. If you come
Life
back,
with Derek.
if you come back and you're sitting on the couch with your girlfriend and you're watching Life with Derek and you have more memories of that than, whatever you should be doing on the couch with your girlfriend, I mean, thank you, but also shout
Listen,
out.
I didn't. Sometimes you were background noise, you know what I'm saying? But that's beside the point.
Hey, great. Now I got you making out while, like, 12-year-old me is just sitting there nodding, giving you the thumbs up on screen. Great.
Oh yeah, we'll go with making out. Yeah. So what about the duck or the goose over here? What is this
Yeah.
about?
I don't think you can see him on your stream, but that's Bruce. Bruce is
Bruce.
yeah, Bruce is my homie. Bruce keeps us company. We like Bruce.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
now I'm gonna dive into a little bit of Life with Derek. I didn't want to
Yeah.
get the whole show with this. So how did you get the role? What's your cast members like? Do you still keep in contact with any of them? I know the answers to this, but this isn't what we're doing. So by all means, tell us.
Okay, so I got the role. It was really unceremonious. Like, I just auditioned. It was like any other role. Like, you went in, you read the sides, and then there was a couple rounds of auditions, and I got it. Great. So that was neat. In terms of still talking to the cast, it's been an interesting couple of years. Like, I think I've probably talked to them all more in the last 3 years since TikTok blew up and we were all stuck at home than I had before. At the start of the pandemic, Jordy and I did a little watch together stream, and that was the first time that we had really talked in 6-7 years, and it wasn't like it was anything personal. It was just we all kind of went our separate ways.
Became adults. Typical stuff.
I mean, it's not like we weren't getting along or anything like that. It was just like, okay, show was done. I was 17. I wasn't. I was 15. I was ready for whatever came next. I finished high school. It was like just different lives. And Jordy was really young, right, when we stopped. I think she was, at the time, if I was 15, she would have been like 12. And at that age, you're light years apart. So it's not like we were, hanging out on the weekends. Same thing. Mike and Ashley were older, and so we all just kind of did our thing, right? And then lately, I think as adults, especially with the movie coming out and everything, like, there's definitely been a lot more chatter back and forth. But
so my wife has actually asked me to ask you a question about
of course.
The movie that's coming out, and I know the answer.
It did come out already. It came out on the
Family Day, right? I think, yeah. I'm supposed to ask on behalf of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I already know the answer, but she's gonna watch this back. But when it comes to a TV series, because I already know the movie's done. When it comes to a TV series, you're potentially re-advising Edwin.
Yeah. So what they said was, if the idea is that this movie goes to series, and that's what everybody's pulling for. They're like, the way that this was done, right? It was conceived in the middle of the pandemic or at the start of the pandemic. So to go through all the motions and knowing just the technicalities of getting something made in the last couple years, it made the most sense for them to do a series. It made the most sense for them to do a movie. Set the table, introduce some new characters, and see if this thing has legs to be its own series. And I think I hope that is the direction it's headed in. So I've heard probably the explanation that we all got about, look, at the end of the day, you can't bring everybody into this movie when it's all about introducing the new characters. I get it. And they have said, yeah, if it goes to series, we'll bring you back. You get a chance to reprise the role. And
Kind of like a
that's
one-off,
cool.
maybe, or more episodes, right? Depending on the
Yeah.
flow. But we go from little dorky brother Edwin to Uncle
Right.
Edwin,
Yeah.
which
I
is a
mean,
little different.
I think so. Remembering that the new show is going to be about the new kids, not about Casey or Derek, so they say, and certainly not about me. I look at how I might be able to, bring that character back in a way that is very much servicing the new generation, and like I see a lot of potential for the character. I see a
Right.
lot of yeah, I see a pretty solid foundation on how to work him in, but like also it's not up to me at all. I don't get a say necessarily. I can have
Yeah.
ideas, but
You don't have creative control. You just have
right.
your input.
Yeah, exactly. I can say, yeah, this would be great, but at the end of the day, they've got to it's got to fit their vision, right? Like I can tell you that he's a multi-millionaire philanthropist, business savvy, multiple girlfriends. If they don't like that, it's not happening, right?
No, they can that. No. One
I
of
mean,
the
they haven't
top
said no.
followers. His
They
name.
haven't said no,
Well, that's
but yeah,
that's promising, but we'll see what happens.
yeah.
One of the off the top followers. His name is Jody. Huge
Yeah,
fan
hey,
of
Jody.
yours. He says, "What's your favorite moment of life with Derek?"
Um, that's a really, really hard question to answer. Like there's a couple standby answers that I use, but my favorite moment, like from the show entirely, I don't know that there's just one. I I think the easy answer, if you're looking for like a moment from set, the very last episode was great. We had a food fight at the end of it. I've always kind of used that as my favorite thing. It was a breakfast scene at the table. It was eggs, and we just as soon as they called cut, we were all hucking scrambled eggs at each other, and it was just a nice way to send it off. I also yeah, you know what? We're gonna use that one. If you're looking for like an actual answer and a soundbite you can go with that. Um, there's also a lot of love that I have kind of watching how the show has, I guess, like after time, talking to people like you who have such fond memories of the show and are, it's kind of no, it's more than kind of cool. Like it's it
I mean,
hits.
it definitely served a generation at the right time in the mid 2000s. Like we're coming off shows like Fresh Prince, Boy Meets World, stuff like that, where it's heavy drama, teaching us life lessons. And then we have this goofy family dynamic that introduces, well, mom and dad don't stay together forever. This is what happens when you blend families together.
For the record, Fresh Prince and Boy Meets World both had a laugh track, so I don't know if we can call it heavy drama, but
They still stand the test of time, right, in conversation.
yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, look, Fresh Prince talked about some weirdly serious stuff, but I hear what you're saying. Like the coolest thing that somebody's ever said to me, and I really didn't know how to respond. Somebody on TikTok hit me up and was like, "You got me through my parents' divorce." So at
That's
some point,
that's heavy.
yeah, you're like, wow, man, that's amazing. Thank you for putting that out there like that. Wow, really. And you process it, but you're like, okay, you got to understand, like people resonated with this, and that has always been really cool. Other thing is, I came from a blended family. Like my parents are each other's second marriage.
I did not
So
know that. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
it was a very personal experience doing the show.
Wow. Yeah, I like the dynamic that the show brought. I like the goofiness, the wittiness. I always thought it was cool. When I was watching it, I was in Saskatchewan. I'm from Toronto.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of the streets look familiar, so it was a nice home feeling for myself too.
sure.
Being away from home. So, with that said, next question here is co-star not from Life with Derek. Is your favorite?
Oh, this is a great segue into Stone Cold Steve Austin for you, huh?
It
Yeah, I mean, I have worked with a lot of really cool people. But Stone Cold Steve Austin, my guy. Man, first of all, nicest dude. And just crazy to work with. I mean, I was never a wrestling fan, man. Like, I'm not. I had friends that were. I had cousins that were. Wrestling did not get me going, but even I understood the gravity of working with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he was the most humble guy. And when I'm 18 and dude, that was wild.
He's definitely one of, like, whether you're not a wrestling fan or not, he's one of the most influential people of our generation, right?
Yeah,
like, hugely known.
Yeah.
No matter what he was doing. So you said he was humble. What was his energy like with you on set? Because you worked a lot hands-on with him on that show.
Yeah. So
or movie, excuse me.
Let me ask you a question, right? Like, what would you expect? What would you expect the interaction with Stone Cold to be? And this isn't Stone Cold in his, WWE
right? No.
prime.
I would expect this big Texan to be like, "Hey, I'm Steve," putting it down, shaking your hand till it's almost falling off, kind of thing. Like, he brings that presence, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what he was. You nailed it. The cool thing was, like, literally how modest the guy is, and I met him at a wardrobe fitting. So, like, I just landed right at the airport. Maybe it was my second day. You get whisked off to the studio, and like, all right, we're gonna put you through wardrobe. We're gonna put you through that, and I'm changing behind the curtain, and you hear from somebody enter the room, and okay, you're piecing it together. You're like, all right, Stone Cold's in here. So I come out of whatever, and I'm wearing whatever the wardrobe is, and the producer's there, and he's like, yeah, Dan, I want you to meet Steve, and he shakes my hand. He's like, how you doing? And I'm like, hey, man, nice to meet you. He's like, listen, you've been doing this acting thing a hell of a lot longer than me, so you're going to have to show me a thing or two, all right? That's my introduction to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think at this point, Stone Cold did his own movie there in 2007, I think it was, The Commended. So that would have probably been his third, maybe, movie.
Yeah, he had done another one recently with the same production company. So I knew he wasn't, like, brand new to it. But, still, dude, like, guy's a megastar.
Right.
He is, I think, I don't know if he's still, but I think he definitely was in the Attitude Era the biggest earner of all the WWE stars. Like, as a wrestler, man made more money than The Rock. So
right. I don't think he's up there now. I mean, you got Roman Reigns, but he's still one of the, I would say, top 5 all time, I'd say.
As a wrestler, the guy was the top dog. So when you're used to doing that and you're coming in, like, that is, man, that just, it floors you.
I mean, I'd probably be blown away. Like, I don't know what I would say. Like, I've met some superstars. Like, I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is where this podcast started. Now we're not just wrestling, but
Sure.
Meeting just superstars there a couple weeks ago, not big names, but like little guys, and it's like, it's very humbling, for them to come down, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. No, I learned a lot from guys like him. Like, for reals, I definitely had a bit of an ego for a time, and it was a combination of being at that age and also living in a world where people were coming up to me and freaking out. So it's just objectively looking at it, being like, okay, well, I'm not nobody. Was nice to have guys like Steve to remind you or give you examples of how to act around people. Because then you look back and you're like, man, like, especially after I'd come back and kind of gone through my own mental gymnastics, it was like, yeah, dude, be humble. And, man, guy led by example.
Leading into that.
Okay.
Not acting, or even within acting, where would you say, and this is the big thing nowadays, your mental health would range on a month to month, we'll say? with all this up and down that you've had to deal with in acting and just life and absorbing people swarming you at times.
Yeah. Today we're doing great. And I'm a big advocate for this, and I don't hide any of this. Like, I've definitely had my crazies.
Right.
Yeah, like when I talk about going back to school when I was 25 and where I was at mentally, like, it wasn't good. You know, I wasn't. Yeah, I'm grateful and I'm thankful that I was able to go home. I was able to to be around my family. Not that it was always the most calm environment. I don't know what you know about crazy Jewish households, but you know,
I do
it's
not
like
know
that.
nothing about that. So
Well, every family's got their own kind of crazies, right? So it's just, you know, it's everything you've ever seen in the sitcom that takes place in New York, where everyone's just, you know, yelling to get stuff done and whatever. So not like the calmest environment, but you learn a lot of resilience, you know, and especially when things don't work out. Like, going through my existence, there was always this certainty that I was going to make it, whatever that meant. I was gonna
right.
be I was gonna do it, and I was gonna do it while I was young, and you're gonna be on top, and you know, you're gonna live the Harry Styles life or something like that, you know? Like,
So you pumped your ego to more than you
yeah,
needed
but
to.
yeah, 100%, right? And then, you know, great if you actually make it to those heights. But if you don't, there's a fall from grace. And it's really, really hard at that age, because we're talking 25, 26, 27, whatever, where people in your age bracket, your peers, are finally figuring out who they are. And, you know, like your early 20s are a shit show. You're getting out, you find your identity, you're building your life up, and all of those things. I was in a very weird position where, as a kid and as a young adult, I knew who I was. There was never any doubt in my mind that I was going to be an entertainer, a professional, whatever, in my teen years.
Right.
There was nothing to figure out. But then when you
Right.
look around and you're like, man, okay, I didn't get there. Now you've got to figure it out, and you're in a completely different place than your peers. So, having done that and having dabbled in a lot of different things, you're still kind of looking for a bit of consistency. And the cool part for me is that in the last couple of years since I moved back to Vancouver, it has not been easy. It's very much been another transitional period when I thought I was done with transitional periods. But I think once you hit 30, man, the pressure just comes off. Like, I'm 31 years old. It didn't work. It didn't work out the way that I had hoped it was when I was a kid. It like, objectively, I have to say that because it's true. So now the pressure's off. So now, fuck it. Like,
the plan at 15 is not the plan at 30, right? Like,
right. And you know, I'm a stubborn guy, so like, I was committed to that plan. But no, I mean, now it's like, all right, I'm looking around at what I am and what I'm building, and I'm happy with it, and I'm happy with who I am. And do I wish that I was in a role where I was making a hell of a lot more money, like I was pulling six figures and, you know, like enough to buy a house? Sure. But then you also look at, like, okay, well, your whole generation's going through stuff too. You know, you're not special. You're just a guy figuring it out like everybody else. So
our generation sucks. Like,
I don't.
We were raised for a world that doesn't exist. Simple as that.
Yep. And that's our unique struggle. You know what? We don't have to go to war, or at least we didn't in our early 20s. So, you know,
it's
really worse, right? Like, think about it, man. You're complaining to you complain to your grandparents or your great grandparents about the life.
Yeah, you're still like a moron at that point.
Yeah, right. Like, imagine your 25-year-old version of your grandfather sitting here going, "What's the matter with you? Are you kidding?" By that point, I had gone 3 tours of Europe.
Yeah.
Came back, watched all of my friends die face down in the muck. And you're like, all right, you got a point. So you try and keep it in perspective. You really do.
That's good, and I'm glad to hear that you're an advocate of mental health. I mean, not a lot of men are willing to open up about that, right? That's a huge struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, I deal with it personally, and like you do too.
You're a father, Shadow. I mean, that
Yeah.
means there are pressures that I cannot even begin to wrap my head around. You want to provide
Yeah.
for your family, all of that, man. I'll talk about this shit all day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a father of 3 with one on the way. So a father of 4 now. Right.
Oh wow, man,
So
mazel tov.
thank you. Yeah, it's the struggles are different. Like I said, I'm gonna go back to this again. Same age, but one struggle to another. It's 2 separate worlds, right? Like,
Completely.
and I, for the longest time, you look at people in your position who have the acting ability and all that, and it's like, shit, I could almost do that. But then you realize when listening to you, it's not that easy. It's
No,
cutthroat.
God no. But it's anything. It's anything. I mean, even putting the podcast out like you're doing, right? And streaming and all that. And I've been putting a lot of energy into streaming over the last little while. You learn a couple of things. You learn that the quality of the product is not irrelevant, but certainly not the most important thing. The most important thing is how are you getting eyeballs on it, right? So it's the grind around the grind.
Yeah.
And that's any industry. It's never about, like being a real estate agent, right? My brother's a real estate agent. Is he good at real estate because he can show a client a house and tell them that they want to buy this house? That's not what it's about. It's about putting yourself out there and telling everybody that you're a real estate agent so that you have people coming to you for help. That's the grind. So that's what it is, man. I'm a good person when it comes to connecting with people, as in that is my skill set. I'm good at creating one-on-one connections with people and listening to folks and everything. Do I have to exercise that skill set within the acting world, or are there better avenues to do it to find success and still have fun? And that's the kind of part of the journey that I'm at right now, despite putting all the effort into what I'm currently doing.
Fair enough. So I do have to ask this, because I want to know, what are your thoughts or feelings when you found out you were nominated for Young Artist Award?
It was cool. This has got to be what, like 2007, 6?
In and around there, yeah. I think that's what my notes have there.
I didn't care. In a way, like on the one hand, I did. Like, it's cool. On the other hand, you're like, Shadow, have you ever heard of a Young Artist Award?
No, until I did some research, no.
Right? So you're like, okay, that's cool, I guess. And then I looked at who else was nominated. I lost to the kid from Weeds. So you're like, all right, that was a big show, I guess. Like, it's nice to be considered, but it's not like anybody ever reached out to me personally. It was like an email. It was like, you got nominated for this thing. You can go to this thing or you can whatever. So you're like, that doesn't really matter. I mean,
yeah, if they tell you can just email or just watch, it's like, yeah, I'm not winning. Thanks for the nomination, though.
Well, it's just not that kind of thing. So like, I've never been I don't seek out awards. I'm not like looking to fill my shelf with trophies. Like
accolades that don't make you feel better in 20 years, right?
Like it's always nice to be recognized, and I certainly wouldn't, I wouldn't refuse an award, but I've never been motivated by that kind of stuff. So, like I said, it was cool. I wanted to go because I think Hayden Panettiere was nominated for something as well, and
I had a huge crush on her as a teenager.
Me too. So you're like, yeah, I want to go bump elbows with Hayden, but I did, it wasn't like, I think I was discouraged from going, and they're like, it's not a big thing, because I was like, all right, whatever, I don't really care, and that's it.
The next question I have is, your series Sandstorm, is it coming back? What's the idea here?
No, so Sandstorm was done with Dungeons and Do-Gooders. So one of the, like, I don't know, handful of different projects I've done over the last couple of years. It was a Dungeons & Dragons series on Twitch. It was a lot of fun to do. We ended it on a cliffhanger because we had some scheduling issues, and we were either going to have to crunch the ending or just leave it and put it to bed. We left it. We put it to bed. It's open-ended. I know how it's supposed to end. Only I know how it's supposed to end. My players don't even know because it's D&D. There are no plans to bring it back in the near future, but I'm a big fan and never say never.
Sounds good. Now, I know you're on Twitch, you're on TikTok, and you're a very bubbly personality on both. Mm-hmm. Now, the entrepreneurship of this, what you're trying to build a brand, you have Bing Pot and Mad Pot. So, does the acting help bring in the audience being like, hey, that's Edwin, and it draws some instant pull
Yeah,
to it.
that's basically what I'm trying to do, shamelessly so. A lot of what I'm doing when I'm on TikTok is it's just tell people what I'm doing now. And I do, like I said, like that back and forth that you can only get in a TikTok live when you're on in front of like 60 people and they're all firing comments at you and you're like, go, go, go. I do love that. I do. Um, at the end of the day, it's about telling people what I'm doing so that people can come check it out. And my line is basically, hey, if you're only in this live on TikTok because you recognize me from Life with Derek and I'm a little pop of nostalgia for you and that's cool and you're going to smile and nod and say, yeah, that's great. That's great. If, however, you are genuinely curious in what I am doing and other things and you want to come check that out and maybe support it, here's how you do it. And then I direct people to either Bing Pot Trivia on Instagram, to the Twitch channel, which was Bing Pot TV, but since February has been Mad Pot, as I've done a joint venture with my roommate Duncan, aka Mad Kips, who is I don't know if Nick is still in the chat, but Nick, if you are, I would love to know how you would describe Duncan. So
I mean, people gotta be crazy to live with you, man. I've seen your energy. It's
it bothers me how accurate that was, considering you and I, like, we have this very distant relationship, but yeah, you hit that bang on. I'm like, okay, yep. I need to reel that back a little.
We have a distant relationship, but we connect on that level, right? So
yeah, well, I get, that's it, right? Is that I also don't hide anything. Like I think I am pretty authentic. The more I've been doing this over the last couple of years, and the more I like put myself out on the regular and leaning on the stuff that I learned in broadcasting school, that
Nick says Duncan's a cool goofball.
Yeah, I don't know if you're definitely half right, Nick. Duncan is an enigma. I think we have very weird personalities that mesh somehow. I'm definitely the spastic one. He's definitely the I'm too cool for this kind of one. It really depends on the day, honestly. We complement each other's energies well. So if you're on the Twitch thing, go check it out, twitch.tv/madpot. 2Ds. Nick, if you want to drop a link, you my guy. Yeah.
My next segment is so now you're not acting, you're being an entrepreneur on here and on TikTok. But I also hear you're pretty active in your community with your trivia and stuff.
Yeah. So, and just real quick, it's 2Ds, 1T for MadPot in the chat. I just saw it was linked, but it doesn't have the right URL. The Bing Pot trivia stuff. So this goes back to when I went back to broadcasting school. So like if there's a thing to talk about a ton, it's this. Like, I started doing these trivia nights when I was at a really, like I said, like a really tough spot. I was like, I had all this new energy because I was going back to school, but I was also like a nervous wreck all the time. Like my mental health, not great. And one of the things that I was doing in Vancouver before I moved back was I was going to trivia night every week. And that was like, because I was waiting tables, Wednesday nights were my weekend. And my buddies and I basically, we bonded over trivia. We built this cool group of eclectic artists as a trivia team. And it was awesome. Like it was a little bit of an identity for a while there. So then when I moved back to Toronto, I couldn't find one that I liked enough. And I said, screw it, we're going to start our own. So I took all that nervous energy that I had and started doing these trivia nights. And then it snowballed and it grew. And after I graduated, I was like, okay, let's see if I can make a run of this. And I started doing something like 4 shows a week in Toronto, building up a community everywhere. And when that all kind of got shut down during the pandemic, I took it online, I took it to Twitch, I got into Twitch, and now I'm like finally feeling like I'm back where I was pre-pandemic, where I'm running a handful of different trivia shows. I've got other guys running shows that I'm kind of coordinating and writing for, and it's growing again in this weird way after years and time that I thought I was going to give it up during the pandemic and
Like,
other things. So
you definitely bring that energy to do something like that. And I'm glad you found your niche, if you will.
yeah, it's
And I hope when you come home, I can make it down to one of your little
yeah.
trivia nights. I'll probably suck, but I'm
Are
there
you are
just to
you in the
support.
Toronto area, Shadow?
I'm like an hour and a half out.
Well, we do shows in Scarborough still. That is very much my company, my
I am.
organization.
Well, you're from here. I'm up by Owen Sound, so I'm not too far
Oh,
out.
you're north. Okay, yeah, yeah, right on.
Yeah, I'm not too far out.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at doing some cool things right now. We're talking in the very early stages about doing a tour out to Alberta and hitting a bunch of bars and doing a trivia thing there, which would be kind of cool. I'm,
You're going to Texas or Canada. All right.
you know what? It's hey man, I'm in BC. It's close, and like at this point, you know what? I'm trying to have fun and do this gig thing well while I'm looking to build a little bit of a more solid base elsewhere. So it's still very much up in the air. It's still very much fly by night. But I've always been the kind of person that has a hard time sitting still. And
Yeah.
this has given me a lot of freedom to do gigs that I like doing, that I can make people have a really good time at, with the idea of bringing people together and
Right.
and just rolling with that. It's been working.
So with that, because the way you said that, you're trying to build. Have you ever thought about taking Bing Pot, Mad Pot to a producer to run a show on like the Game Show Network?
The short answer is I don't know how to do that. What I like to,
Is that something you'd be interested in trying to do?
yeah, like what I've found too with the grind and all of this and where I'm at right now is I'm probably more equipped to do it now than I've ever been. I have had very, very high level conversations with people in different companies, and nobody's ever, nobody with any level of authority has ever looked at me and been like, "This is a great idea. Let's do this." Um, I think part of it is the networking, that either I'm not talking to the right people or I'm not talking to the right people at the right time. Um, I did something like 25 episodes of online trivia for Twitch, and it was a crazy amount of effort to produce and do it, and there wasn't much in terms of reward coming back. So at the end of the day, you've got to look at your situation and be like,
You got to
what
weigh
am I
it.
doing? Right. Now, because I am writing for my live shows and there's a little bit more infrastructure there, it might make sense to bring it back to Twitch. And then if we do that, there's a greater chance somebody sees it. And then that's kind of how I work, is I put myself out there and I hope that there's I most of my opportunities are created when somebody sees me out in the wild and says, "Hey, I like what you're doing. Have you thought about doing this?" So we're going to keep rolling with that.
So in the closing minutes of this, I want to ask, I'm doing this here with my partner, and we have other people that we're branching out. They're running their shows on our network now. What is advice you might be able to give streamers like myself to keep the grind going? Because I'm not going to sit here and lie. Looking at numbers and stuff, it's sometimes disheartening and discouraging.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you're doing, Shadow, because this is what I was doing. I have a couple pieces of advice. I think the first one is make sure it's sustainable, and we're talking dollars and cents. So if you're in the audience and you love what they're doing here with Off the Top, throw them some bits, throw them some subs, keep it going. Because one, it doesn't have to be a lot to encourage you to keep going. If you see growth, you'll keep going. But on that note, right, be smart. Like, you got to be in a decent position to put the effort in. I'm lucky right now that I'm back to being in a place where, okay, we got a lot of gigs working with the trivia stuff. Great. I got other things that I'm working on. I got a podcast that I'm working on that, an organization is paying me to produce. Okay. I'm in a position where I can put X amount of energy into the stream and hope that works. And you see a lot of people in a lot of different industries, whether it's broadcast, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's whatever, they want to put all this effort in, but it's not sustainable, and that's when things implode. So the other half of that coin is go slow. is don't try and take on too much too fast. That model works for some people, but it usually works for people that have a lot of resources to burn as they're getting momentum. If you're not in that position, slow and let it build on itself. Take the money
Right.
you make, put it back into your business, put it back into your and just keep growing that way while making sure that everything else is sustainable. It's a little bit. Look, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an MBA with oodles and oodles of business knowledge, but at the same
Right.
time, that's the model that I've run Bing Pot Trivia on. We never lost money up until the pandemic, and even then, we didn't lose a lot of money. It was just keeping some things alive, but you scale back when you have to, and you be self-sustaining. Don't outgrow yourself.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, we've been building ourselves organically for 2 years now. We're enjoying what we're doing. We feel like we're in a position to invite more people to be a part of the brand, to put content out. Everything is in a circle right now, and we're just doing our thing. You know, we're getting love and support from people, and it's great. But like I said, sometimes the numbers can be disheartening. But again, they always catch them on the flip or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do we?
So
What
with
do we
that,
know, right? Like,
yeah,
well, I said that I've been saying this to a few people that I've been working with lately. Like, the content doesn't matter. That's not entirely true. But what I'm saying is the most important part is that you're getting eyeballs on your content. So, yeah, it's going to be easier to do if the content's good, but don't think because you've got good content that's enough. That's the hard part. It's not. You're competing with everybody else. And think about how many times you've seen something and you're like, this is crap. But it still somehow made its way to your eyeballs.
right.
So it doesn't matter. What matters is consistency, 100% consistency. And you get consistency by acting sustainably. And then the product grows with time, gets better and better.
So now here's one thing I want to talk about. We
Yeah.
both have an undying love for this team, and I'm very upset
Oh,
that
let's go.
our
Leafs
boy
talk.
Sandine is gone. But
Yeah.
tell me what made you fall in love with the Leafs. I know, other than being obviously home.
Well, so the interesting thing is when I first moved out to Vancouver and I'm 17 years old, I was not a hockey fan. And the weirdest part about coming out here is everybody you introduce yourself to, the second they hear you're from Toronto, they start dumping on the Leafs. So it'd literally be like, "Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Daniel," and they'd be like, "Leafs suck." I'd be like, "What the hell are you talking
It just
about?" I
never
don't
goes
care.
away. It's just that, yeah.
Well, so eventually, because like I'm a very proud and I've always been a very proud Torontonian, and I love the city of Toronto. So for me, I started taking things personally, and then I moved to LA, and I just like leaned into my Canadian identity. So it was like, okay, I love hockey, and I'd started watching the Leafs a little bit. And now I started watching the Leafs a lot, and I just found this appreciation for it. And I've been a diehard. It's not a ton of time, but for the last 11 years or so.
I mean, you had a whole jingle, straight to Rasmus. I mean,
Yeah,
still
I
one of
did.
the best sounds I've ever heard.
I appreciate it. I'm sad to see him go, but I'm also happy to see him thriving with Washington. They didn't ever
And
inform him on the roster.
if you remember last year,
Yeah.
when I informed Papa Sandine about that whole song, and you got love for it from them.
Yeah, I did. That was pretty cool. That was very, very cool.
I mean,
We'll not
it's
forget that shadow.
so. Judging with the Leafs this season, do you think we finally slay the beast and get past the first round?
What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say here? What do you
Realistically, I'm tired of this. I just want to go as far as we can go and get out of that first
Yeah,
round.
we all do. A first round win's not going to be enough.
No, I think anything is shy. I think anything shy of an Eastern final,
right,
is a disaster. It's just done. You have to pull up something.
Man, it's not a disaster. The sky's not falling. It's not that, but it is. Our expectations are sky high as best we can to temper them. That's fine. We're not going to feel good if we drop it in 7 games to Tampa in the first round, regardless of how well we play. And if we get out of the first round, we're not going to feel good if we get beat by Boston in 6 or 7 again. So play hard, play well, and just get us a fucking round.
Right. And like I've said, as some people are like, "Oh, you're a Leafs fan." I haven't watched many this season, mainly because my kids are in hockey and it's quite a busy schedule myself. But I'm also just tired of seeing regular season success. Like, we're doing wonderful, but I'm tired of it. I need to see some playoff success to make me want to tune in and watch what you're doing in the season.
The last couple months have gotten me more excited about the Leafs. It's been a weird couple of years with falling shy of expectations, but man, at the end of the day, I love hockey. I love watching the team play well. I went to Seattle to see them beat the Kraken. That was great. I went to Vancouver, the game here, to see them below a. Never mind. That was less great. But
yeah,
but watching them, it gets me going, and it's been getting me going for the back half of this season for sure.
I'm excited to see. I mean, we've added some key pieces. I think that it can bang when it comes to the playoffs, but we'll have to see.
It's feeling more dynamic than it's felt in the last couple of years. I'm optimistic, but I say that every year.
I say that every year too, and then I cry myself to sleep after game 5, 6, 7. It's fine. But with that being said, we head off the top. Appreciate your time and everything. Please go ahead now and shout yourself out in any way where people can find you.
Yeah, guys, it's Instagram and TikTok at the Danny Mags. You can also follow Bing Pot Trivia on Instagram. Do that if anybody's in the Vancouver area or if you're in parts of Ontario where we're doing Bing Pot Trivia shows. Come check them out. They're a ton of fun. All about getting drunk with your buddies, screaming, and maybe winning some stuff. But it's just about the time you spend together with friends. Other than that, twitch.tv/madpot. We're streaming a couple times a week. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Duncan, sometimes it's both of us. Come check it out. It's a good time. And Shadow, thank you very much for the opportunity to come chat.
I love having you on. Thank you. Make sure you check out Scarlet's Lair tomorrow night live here on Twitch. She'll be doing her thing. And thanks for watching the Spotlight tonight.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.